Henry Rollins described November as the older and harder man's October. That being said, what music have I sought to keep the frost at bay this month? Let's find out, shall we? The first one on my list is Tom Waits' Rain Dogs. This is an album I've been listening to this month, primarily because I've had to do a review for it on my Patreon. And once more, Tom Waits delves into the murky abyss and regales us with these characters that populate it. And these narratives unfold like little tapestries, really. In the words of Rolling Stone, these are dramatic bohemian rhapsodies on insanity, deformity, night rain, and irretrievable loss. We get this uncompromising portrayal of whores and old salts and wasters and gamblers. This carnivalesque sideshow of grotesques. It's one that forms a kind of a trilogy of albums, really. Swordfish Trombones and Frank's Wild Years. Although Swordfish Trombones was a much better album in my opinion. This one is more sprawling, I think. One of the contributing factors of note on this album is the guitar work of Mark Ribot, described by one critic as contributing those feverish Cuban guitar licks. It does a lot for the sonic palette of this album. A sonic palette that is pretty eclectic, including styles from cabaret, polkas, ballads, sea shanties. Something for everybody. There's certainly something very theatrical about this ragbag collection of oddities. Next one on my list is this one, Legacy of the Beast of Iron Maiden's box set. This is a fascinating stroll down amnesia lane for me, because I was actually at this gig, the Churchill speech, and then to Aces High. What a wonderful gig it was. Although as you listen to it as it's recorded, you can hear the limitations, I think, on Bruce Dickinson's voice as he sings those older numbers. I think his voice is really straining to reach those notes now, which is certainly more apparent when you listen to the live album rather than when you're actually at the gig and you're assaulted with this tsunami of sound that just comes at you. And like a lot of Maiden stuff, you can just enjoy the artwork and the illustrations, the information they provide in these wonderful lavish sets as you go through it. So that has certainly been on my turntable this month. The next on my playlist is this one. I've been delving into this. This is the collection of James Brown's early albums with the famous Flames. Wonderful barbaric yowl of his that accompanies this great music. I really enjoy this stuff. This also includes the Live at the Apollo, which is an essential live album to listen to, I think. I'm kind of interested as to what point James Brown gets really funky. There's some of those albums I'd like to explore on this one. This includes some of the records I think he did in the late 50s. Please Please Me, Try Me, Think, Live at the Apollo, Prisoner of Love. Wonderful stuff. I must explore this guy's back catalogue more extensively, because I just find there's an energy and exuberance in this music that is quite infectious. So yeah, that one's definitely been on my playlist. The next album on the turntable this month, I think it's featured before actually, is this one, the debut Emerson, Lake and Palmer record. I think the reason I'm listening to this at the moment is I'm preparing my worst to best of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which should be with you before Christmas, I hope. I think the buzzword when we're talking about this record is balance. I find it's a perfectly balanced ELP record. It doesn't drift too much into prog obfuscation. It has it wandering aimlessly around this prog forest, desperately looking for some sort of lick or sonic motif to latch onto. It's just perfectly, there's a perfect equilibrium between the three of them on this record, I think. It employs some quite dark gothic textures on this, and you have Keith Emerson, of course, playing away at his larger-than-life organ. Cue Sid James laugh at that point. This album beautifully presents these three musicians in all their glory, from wonderful classical arpeggios, impressive licks, all thrown in with a kind of an uncanny ease, I think. The tracks on this album are just remarkable. I love the wistful, plaintive quality. We get to Take a Pebble, to the little bit of acoustic whimsy with Lucky Man, which I think is rescued from just being inconsequential by the wonderful keyboard flourishes at the end by Keith Emerson that give it a more dramatic and cinematic scope. The next album on my list is this one, The Verve's Urban Hymns, and this of course is the collective box set which brings together demos and live recordings and acoustic reworkings, all sorts of things on here. This is a fascinating record. For many it's seen as the swan song for Britpop in some respects. As an album it brings together lots of threads that we'd associate with Britpop. It has a grandeur that we'd associate with Oasis at their Wembley baiting best. What's fascinating about this album, instead of just spinning on that axis of 1960s rock and pop, just being incredibly derivative of the Beatles, the Kinks and Small Faces and stuff like this, we get a more intriguing exploration of lush atmospheres. And as such, this album was embraced by a lot of people who were getting a little bit jaded with Britpop's retro indulgences. Yeah, and as much as this album takes me back to the 90s and some of the motifs on it sound a little bit dated now, or maybe I've just heard them too many times, I don't know. But I think it's a fine, fine album. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for tuning into On the Turntable for November, and I will end this as I always do by urging you to click like, subscribe and check that bell, but also to stay safe, stay warm, and more importantly, keep listening.